Absolutely. And then let's talk about your boys here, the Arizona Cardinals. Again, they actually went 8-9 last year. Still struggling to stay competitive in this division. But for you, where do you feel like they've kind of done a good job at retooling this roster in the offseason and trying to improve that 8-9, maybe, getting in the mix with a 10-7 or 11-6 record or better?
Yeah, and I think it starts with Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon, the GM and the head coach for the Cardinals, have been awesome together. We talk a lot about the handshake between a GM and a head coach, and they have a really strong one. They're heavily underrated going into 2025. I think, ESPN, PFF, Pro Football Network, a bunch of other big media NFL brands have this team 20th or below in their rankings. And I don't think they're even going to be close to that. I think we're looking at a 14th, 13th, 12th ranked team. Definitely a playoff unit. And it starts with how much they knocked down this roster when they first came in 2023. So in total, only 10 players remain from that original roster that they took over in 2020 at the start of 2023. And that was Kyman Cliff's last season, obviously. Those 10 players are Kyler Murray, James Conner, Greg Dortch, Andre Basilia, Kelvin Beachum, Will Hernandez, who they just re-signed because they need guard depth, Zaven Collins, Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, and Aaron Brewer, the long snapper. 6 of those guys have their contracts expiring at the end of this year, and I think they might only bring 2 or 3 of those guys back.
Wow.
2 of those have their contracts expiring in 2027. That's James Conner and Zaven Collins. I don't think either of them are going to get re-signed unless they just want veteran presence with James Conner. And then 2 more beyond that, and that's Kyler and Budda Baker. Both will be at the tail ends of their careers. Not so much Kyler, but more so Budda. So they might let Budda walk, or Kyler might be gone even before that if the season does not go the way it's intended. And with that, they've added lots of young talent through the draft, and they've hit on a bunch of their picks. Namely, Garrett Williams has been an absolute stud as a nickel corner. And they took a shot on him. He was coming off an ACL tear during his senior year at Syracuse. So they really took a gamble, and that gamble seemed to pay off. And they have some other really good young guys on this defense as well that they've built around some of those guys that have stayed back, like Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, Zaven Collins. So it's an exciting time to be a Cardinals fan, but there are still question marks going into 2025. And if those question marks aren't answered, I think some guys are going to get fired and some guys are going to get cut. That would be big time headlines for the car, or just for the NFL in general if these guys played on any other team.
Yeah, and do you feel like one of those question marks is how they could have maybe not finished the way they finished last season? I mean, like you said in your notes, they were 7-7 entering week. They were 7-7 after 14 games. There's a lot of different ways that a record could go. Obviously,
yeah.
At 7-7 with 3 games remaining in the season, obviously did not go the way they wanted. They finished 1-2. But for you, I mean, where were some moments last year that you feel like could have been the difference maker in finishing between 9-8 and 8-9?
Yeah, it's Kyler. Kyler really struggled at the back half of last year. Was looking really good. Again, MVP type play through the first 6 weeks, and then the middle weeks he was playing well. Had some key clutch moments during that time, but after that, he kind of just dropped off a cliff and he started to struggle a lot against pressure, struggled a lot in general, had a lot of turnover worthy plays, not nearly as many big time throws. So it was really tough to see him kind of just, take that step back. But I think the other side of that is Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator, and not being he's an awesome run game designer. And that's why they have one of the most efficient rushing offenses. And that's why James Conner is James Conner, right? And that they have a really good rushing attack. But Drew Petzing kind of diminishes the pass game. And he designs a lot of stuff with Trey McBride, and Trey McBride's awesome. And Kyler loves throwing to Trey McBride. He's the number 1 target and will be again this year, right? He needs to do a better job of scheming up plays for Marvin Harrison, because Marvin Harrison ran a lot of go balls, a lot of deep post, a lot of deep comebacks. And where Marvin thrives is in the short game. He's 6'3", 6'4", runs a 4.3, and he's one of the best, brightest young receivers in the NFL, and is one of the biggest prospects to come out at the receiver position since Julio Jones, right? Like very, very high level generational talent, if you want to call it that. I wouldn't call it that, but he's very, very good. But he wasn't used like how he was used at Ohio State on those short crossing routes and on those quick out routes and on curls and on digs. Like he wasn't really used in that way. So it's, how do you take full advantage of that guy's skill set if you're not going to use him to his advantage and to his skill set, right? So like, look at Kyler all we want, but Drew Petzing needs to prove he is an NFL pass game designer. And if that doesn't change by halfway through the year, I think Jonathan Gannon needs to lean on the pass game coordinators and say, I need you guys to design something, and I'm going to call the pass plays, and I'm going to change something, because the passing offense, especially in the back half of the season, has been brutal the past 2 years. And, you know, like Kyler Murray, we want to talk about EPA from week 14 to 18 last year. He was 16th in EPA. Like, he was not that good and not that efficient in the back half of the year. And especially that game against the Panthers and the Rams, like it was just a tough stretch for Kyler at the end of last year.
Yeah. Well, one guy that could help alleviate the pass game, Michael Wilson. He's your dark horse for the Arizona Cardinals. Could you talk about where he can kind of elevate this unit?
Yeah, it seems like he's going to be the slot receiver this year. They tried the Greg Dortch experiment, who I was really high on Greg Dortch, especially with how he played his first year in the system, but obviously did not do great, was really inefficient. And not that Michael Wilson is efficient either, but he was kind of being used out of place to what his skill set provides. We talk about the power big body slots like Xavier Legette. Laviska Shenault, like when he was a rookie, was used as power slot a lot and did well there. Like he's that kind of prototype or archetype that we see there. So over the past 2 years, this is just overall stats. 1,113 yards at a 13.1 yards per reception rate. He had 85 catches on 129 targets for basically 66% reception rate. He was using the slot just over 30% of the time. That's going to spike. It's probably going to be double that going into this year, probably 60 to 70. He's not the best yak guy, but he's a really good jump ball and go up and get it. And that's why they want to use his big body in the middle of the field, is to help Kyler with his middle of the field passing, because that's where he struggles a little bit, is that intermediate area over the middle. So that should alleviate, some room there. But outside with yak, 281 yards after the catch, 3.3 yak per reception, not great. And 1.22 yards per route run, inefficient. But again, he's the third or fourth option in this offense, at least the past 2 years. So going into year 3, that should spike up, especially being used in the slot more. 12.8 average depth target. I expect that to drop because he's going to be in the slot. But contested catch rate, pretty good, 54.3%. That's pretty good for a guy of his size. 56 first downs and a 94.9 passer rating when targeted. Like just a solid, reliable receiver. And now you're going to put him where he actually fits with his skill set and will allow Kyler to find more stuff over the intermediate part of the field in the middle. I think that he's a good dark horse to have. There are a couple directions I wanted to go, but I think he's going to have, out of everyone that's kind of looking to take that next step, he should be taking the biggest step because of how differently he'll be used this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just had some big trade news. It's actually involving the 49ers. Don't look at it because I want to get your reaction when we get to the 49ers segment.
Can I take a guess who it is? I haven't looked at it, but can I take a guess?
Yeah, take a guess.
Brian Robinson Jr. to the 49ers.
No comment. We're gonna get onto the big Cardinals. We're gonna get onto the big.
Actually,
we're gonna get to the big Cardinals question, and then we're gonna.
Are you shitting me? No way.
All right, so let's wrap up the Cardinals really quick.
Well, can we talk about this defense real quick?
Let's talk about the defense. Let's talk about the defense.
But this defense is so underrated, and like people, I hate when people say oh, the Cardinals defense is good. Yeah, they're good. If we look at from week 9 to week 18, they were 10th in EPA per play allowed. Before that, they were 29th. They were 6th in EPA per dropback allowed from week 10 to 18. They were 30th before that. And EPA per rush allowed, not great, 23rd, but they were 29th before that. So they improved in a lot of areas, especially pass defense. And now this D-line is going to come back fully healthy. You have Darius Robinson, who was hurt most of last year. He's going to be in there. They added Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson as really good veteran presence pieces for this interior rush unit. Walter Nolan, who was one of my favorite defensive tackle prospects I've ever scouted. He's very violent, very fast, and will run through your face and also hit you with a quick finesse move. He's got some maturity stuff, but that's why they have Calais Campbell here. He's the perfect guy to bring Nolan up through the reins. And then depth pieces, Dante Stills is really solid. LJ Collier played well for this defense. And Elijah Simmons has had a really good camp as an undrafted free agent. If they carry 7 interior guys, I think those are the 7. But, I think this defense is going to be much more improved, especially because that front 5 or those interior 3 being 7 guys deep is going to be sick, even with, they have Baron Browning, Zaven Collins, BJ Ojulari, and Jordan Burch they just drafted. Like, they have a pretty good edge group to go along with that. So I think it's going to be a really, really good defensive year for the Cardinals. And Nick Rallis is one of the brightest young defensive minds in the NFL. He's only 31 years old, took the DC job at 29. So he's learned a lot in his first 2 years, and now he has a full defense to run with that. Oh, and have to mention Will Johnson. If he's fully healthy, that's a hell of a deal in the second round. He's a freak.
Totally. And then the big question for the Cardinals, can they, and specifically Kyler, just keep their composure during the back half of the season and make a push?
I think they can, as long as the offensive scheme stays not the same, but they make minimal adjustments rather than these big adjustments, or they get too vanilla. Because the problem Kyler has is in the first half of the season, he's scrambling around. He's making plays on the move. And then halfway through the year, for whatever reason, he decides he wants to play more in structure, or they're telling him to play more in structure and stay in the pocket, or defenses are doing a better job of containing him. Like, he's got to get more creative and have better improvisation in those moments to still use his athleticism and make plays happen. Because when you look at his pocket mobility in the first half of every year he's played in, he's fantastic. In the second half, he just stops doing it and the offense crumbles because of it. So he just needs to be Kyler and not try to be this pocket passer, because he's decent at that, but he's much better on the move and out of structure.